terminology, they're trying different ones. The new one that's just started is, ready for this? Communism on the Hudson. And that's going to take. That or some form of it is going to take. So he's not even elected yet, but you already live, Daryl, I hate to tell you, in a communist regime like the CCP.
Yeah, and think about what you just said. Most people, when it comes to the sound bites, go back to the same sources because they're likely going to be sound bites that they already agree with, right? So you have the whole idea about the confirmation bias. And then with the word salad, right? It became, these leftist, communist, socialist Democrats. They just kept adding words. First it was leftist Dems, then it became leftist socialists.
Right, and I didn't bring this up to get us on a different tangent.
Yeah, no, I understand, but it's just words.
But right, I'm just saying that we need to be, we have to listen more carefully than we do as a society. Thanks, Daryl. Denise, thank you everybody who's in queue for their patience. I'm going to get to all of you, I promise. Denise.
Yeah. Hi, Gary. Hi, everyone. I do have a few points. So just to start with, the politicians, they know better. And I don't, do people not care about their legacy? For example, hearing out of her own mouth, I see her, oh, that's great. And Lisa Murkowski saying, well, I did the best for Alaska, but I hope this bill doesn't pass because it's bad for the rest of the country. Do they not care about their legacy? Second point is they could have already gone after waste, fraud, and abuse. They didn't need to make cuts to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. And actually, some of it is, as people have brought up, the logjam of these providers getting away from things because there's so much bureaucracy and it's maybe hard to catch them. We're just adding more bureaucracy when people now are having to log in these 80 hours and who's keeping up with that, and it's just going to be a log jam there. Another point Francine brought up about a quarter of births being covered by Medicaid. It was actually the numbers in 2023 are 41% of births in the U.S. are financed primarily by Medicaid. And of course, in rural communities, it's almost 50%. In states like Texas, it's almost 50%. And the SNAP assistance that's being cut, children don't deserve to have to struggle for food. It has nothing to do with them, and no matter what is going on with their parents. And many mothers are not deadbeats, but it's very difficult to provide food and everything your child needs when these mothers and single fathers may be in lower income jobs, and then at the same time they have to pay for daycare, they have to pay for rent, which is not inexpensive anymore, as well as utilities and gas and all the things. And when it comes down to it, do they have money to go to the grocery store and buy what their children need? And so it's not that everyone is gaming the system and is a deadbeat. There are many people who really do need this assistance. There's a huge difference between making $12 an hour than there is people who make it, a nice living. And another thing is, this is adjacent to the Medicaid, is there will be significant cuts, they say, to the ACA marketplace. And that's been a great program for people who were uninsured. A lot of kind of everyday people who were uninsured were able to get health care because they had some subsidies. And it's going to hurt a lot of small business owners. I've heard, people interviewed. It's going to hurt freelancers. I have a family member who's gone back to school to better themselves, and so they're working part-time. And it's going to be more difficult to qualify, to keep up with, and more expensive for people to be insured. So there's going to be a lot of people going without. Young people will think, oh, I don't really need insurance. It's too much now. And that can't help. And then one more thing, when we talk about these rural hospitals, so many of them are already struggling. And from what I've read, certain states get extra Medicaid funds to disperse to these hospitals. And at least I heard a doctor today on being interviewed, and he was talking about at least 25% are at risk of closing. For one, making, as we know, healthcare harder for for people in rural communities, and especially when it's really needed. But another thing to think about is the medical jobs at these hospitals is one of the kind of best employers in the area, and the best incomes are the people who are able to, be employed in these hospitals and work in the medical field in these areas. And that will go away from these communities. So there's that effect as well. So anyway, those are just some of the points that I had to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. David.
Hey, Gary. So, the Congress people that voted for this, they just need to own the fact that this was a massive ploy to give tax breaks to more of the wealthiest in this country, on the backs of the poorest of this country and the most vulnerable. I've heard an argument that upwards of 20 million people will be affected by these bills, by the gutting of Medicaid throughout many of the red states, the congressmen from those red states that voted for this. It's even more egregious that it was brought out that there was a Congress member from Pennsylvania, a guy by the name of Brennahan, I believe. Elizabeth Warren pointed out that he sold stock in a Medicare-backed corporation, Centene Corporation. And since this bill is passed, that stock has dropped 40%. So, we're seeing the way our politicians game bills to enrich themselves and to protect their portfolios.
Yeah, but in fairness, David, this is not insider trading because all this is out in the public specter. So if you had that stock and you saw that this bill was likely going to pass and you dumped it, even if you disagreed with the bill, wouldn't that have been a prudent thing to do? I don't think there's anything onerous about it.
Well, the way you got to look at it, Gary, is am I passing the bill because it's going to hurt my
I get that part. Yes, that's true.
Okay.
I don't think it's insider trading necessarily, but it might have influenced his voting decision.
Of course. So, and who knows how many untold, trades were done in the darkness of night without there being, people knowing about it. I mean, my point is, Gary, is that and I heard this fraud and abuse. This is the canard. This is the canard they use to go after the immigrants, to spend all this money to go grab a few criminals when they're smashing everybody in their wake. We're going to smash all these recipients of Medicaid in their wake to catch some of the fraud, abuse, and waste that we think is out there. So it's really a kind of a red herring to basically smash and deny and reroute our tax dollars toward tax cuts that none of us benefit from, by the way, enriching, the billionaire class. And at least Elon Musk, as much of his own interests may not have aligned with this bill, and because of that, he's now upset that the deficits are going to rise and the debt will not go down. At least he's being honest from a fiscal standpoint, saying that how are we going to pay for this down the road? And we just keep kicking the can down the road, Gary, to the future generations. And to Dr. Francine and others talking points about do we really care about families? Do we really is this a family values party? Do we really care that the youth today can't afford to have children? I mean, especially these young men today. I mean, God forbid they have a child at age 24, 25 with no income, and then they're on the hook for 18 years of child support, let alone the cost of feeding and clothing and all the health care that goes into having a child. And so where is the backstop of the idea of a family, a nuclear family that they want to rid us of the trans threat to our society, which they've been very successful at doing, bullying universities and creating these onerous bills affecting that. But yet, where's the backstop? Where's the money? At least Viktor Orban in Hungary puts his money where his mouth is. He says, look, you're going to have a family of four. We'll subsidize your cars. We'll give you free health care. We'll even pay you money to have children. And there may be an agenda there for them to have their own nationalistic Christian white Hungarian society, but at least they're promoting and they're backstopping young families in a way that doesn't lead them into debt, future bankruptcy, and obviously the high divorce rates that our society sees every day. So I see a massive contradiction here in where our country